I just got back from seeing Inside Out 2, and I usually don't do this, but I think it's actually an appropriate time for me to actually try this. I'm going to review this movie. I'm actually going to take a little bit of time out of this video to review it, because it's actually that good. But then I will get actually onto the subject that I want to talk about. Okay, so basically, if you didn't catch that, I really like this movie. It's really good. I'm not going to spoil any of it for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, because I know that I am pretty early to the game. But wow, this thing is actually from start to finish, extremely enjoyable. It's very funny. It gets very emotional. It's just like the sequel that we all wanted from Inside Out 2. And I remember back in the day when Inside Out 1 was a huge success. And then we started seeing fake trailers like Inside Out 2 stuff coming out. May I just say, I do not remember this at all. That's weird. The movie, though, oh man, I think if you like the original movie, you are really gonna like the sequel. This movie is everything that anybody who liked the first movie wants. This is the sequel that we all wanted, and maybe some people are gonna have speculations. Just so you know, I did, because, Pixar hasn't been on the best streak recently. They haven't been doing the best of their work. They've shot themselves in the foot and their legs and their kneecaps and shoulders and chest and head with their last statement. But this movie, I think it really puts my hopes back in Pixar, that they can actually still make good stuff. Also, this isn't necessarily a spoiler. I just think a lot of people are going to miss out on this. This is going to be the main thing that people are going to talk about when all of a sudden you see top 10 things you missed in Inside Out 2. They're definitely going to point out how that meme with the guy looking back at the girl and then the girlfriend kind of being really mad about that is actually parodied in this movie. I'm not kidding. This is going to be a little bit of a spoiler. In the scene where Anxiety and Joy are talking over the television screen and they're kind of rioting against Anxiety, if you look in the top right corner in one of the projections, it's right there. Top right corner, I'm pretty sure Joy is talking. It's not something that you can relatively only see for a split second and then it's gone. No, it'll be up there for a good 10 seconds, so you actually have time to find it and look at it and kind of just revel in the fact that this is real. I was the only person in my theater laughing when I saw that. Also, speaking of theater stuff, never usually talk about any of this. This is all very new to me. Now imagine this. The two people I was sitting next to were two teenage girls, obviously going to see Inside Out 2, because, that's what I was seeing as well. I'm sorry for thinking y'all are stupid. I don't know why I said that. And basically, these two teenage girls throughout the entirety of the movie were cringing like crazy. They were all of a sudden jumping up from their seats, squirming around their chairs, and then whispering to each other the entire time. And usually, I'm not the type of person to when people are whispering or doing any of that during a movie. But honestly, there was something about how these two teenage girls watching this one teenage girl go through all this trouble that I actually kind of liked it. It was kind of immersive to it. I don't really know if I should give a score, how many stars I liked it, because I don't really know how to do that. But a very good movie. Very much recommend it. Watch the first movie, watch this one, and you're going to have a blast. Trust me. My ears, eyes, and everything were really happy by the end of this. The audio design was great. The music was great. The animation is spectacular. Oh my god, it looks so good. And then just everything about this movie, the story, the message. The message is probably one of Pixar's best, out of every single thing ever that they've produced. It is one of their best. I'm not kidding. You can see for yourself. And if you have seen for yourself, you probably agree with me. Anyways, let's actually get on to what I wanted to talk about, because talking about movies and reviewing stuff like that, although I'm not going to review another movie, I do want to just say that this movie, Inside Out 2, is about puberty. Just like another recent Pixar movie, aka Turning Red. I did not immediately see this movie when it came out, because I had no interest in it. I did not like it. I did not like the idea. I didn't like any of it. But then I watched it eventually, because after a lot of pressure from people, I decided to watch it because, Pixar haven't missed one before, so felt a little awkward missing one this time. I'm going to be flat out, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. I'd take this movie over The Good Dinosaur, but at the same time, no. So, while watching Inside Out 2, I had this great idea. What makes Inside Out 2 a good representation of puberty compared to Turning Red, which has an awful representation of puberty, and just kind of like how life is? Both these movies are about puberty. Both these movies tackle the subject of puberty differently. One of them works, one of them doesn't. I'm going to get into that right now. I'm not going to compare these movies because they actually are quite different from each other, but I'm just going to say this. Anxiety from Inside Out 2 and just kind of the introduction of all these new characters is a great way of representing puberty, because the puberty is something that doesn't, you don't understand it immediately. It's something that no one really does. It's something that happens to you. All of your emotions basically just chokehold you the entire time you're on period. My bad. Sorry, I'll get back into that later. They just chokehold you the entire time you're going through puberty. Everything is an overreaction. There's a lot of emotions the entire time. And the addition of these new emotions is perfect. I talked about in one of my previous videos about Inside Out and what Inside Out 2 has to learn. By the way, they did it in this movie. Inside Out 2 introduces all of these emotions really, really well. They show what they're here for. They show what they do in one of the probably the most awkward scenes of the movie. And they do it so well that you can kind of not really predict what they're going to do next. And that's exactly what a good representation of puberty should be. Puberty is something that you can't control. You don't know what's going to happen next. It's just going to happen. It will happen at some point for everybody. You just don't know when. You don't know why. It just will. It's going to shove a lot of pressure onto you. And the fact that Inside Out 2 takes the new characters and throws them into this really awkward situation is a perfect way of showing it, because they know puberty is unpredictable. So basically, these emotions doing unpredictable stuff in the moment while Riley is talking to Val is perfect. It's so well done. You don't know what they're going to do next. A lot of awkward stuff happens. You get through the scene, you're feeling a little bit awkward. But at the same time, as we transition to Turning Red, Inside Out 2 does the awkward scenes with a bit of entertainment behind them. The realistic depiction of awkwardness in those stages of life, but at the same time, it's interesting to see the inner workings of this, which is something that I cannot say about Turning Red. Turning Red is a very confusing way of putting puberty, as the big red panda is a metaphor for puberty for some reason, when also the red panda is supposed to symbolize May's influence from her family and her culture. But at the same time, the red panda also symbolizes the future and how life works. And here's the weird thing. None of these things have anything to do with the other. So combining them all into this one big metaphor is pointless and horribly representing puberty. Puberty is a start to a new future, but it doesn't dictate what your life is going to be. May suddenly turning into a red panda and getting really popular about that is not how puberty works. If we're referring to something that happens with puberty, aka acne, basically people cover that up. May originally covers up the red panda, but at some point she just kind of lets go, which doesn't really make sense. It's a bad representation because it doesn't make sense at all. May wants to cover up the panda, but at the same time, she doesn't. And then all of a sudden, this entire big metaphor just kind of gets flipped over as soon as the other grandmas and her mom turn into red pandas too. So really, the depiction of puberty is just no longer there. Her mom, her aunts, and her grandma have all gone through puberty, but now all of a sudden, the red panda is involved with the people that have already gone through puberty. It's trying to do three things at once, and then all of a sudden, in the third act, just completely get rid of one of those reasons the metaphor is there. And now, moving away from me talking about specifically puberty, I want to move on to another P word. Periods. Yay! I just want to, explain that I do not have, quote-unquote, from the internet, a vagina or a uterus. So I don't really know the feeling of what a period feels like. I've learned about it in health class 3 separate times, but I'm not the best example of knowing exactly how they feel, like how it makes you feel or anything like that. So just take everything that I say with a grain of salt. Starting off with Inside Out 2, I have nothing to say about this movie. There is no mention of a period anywhere throughout the movie. It's literally just the start of puberty. There's no period, just puberty. And I will get back into why that's a good thing in a second. Turning Red, on the other hand, is all about periods, basically. One of the first jokes in the movie is that the mom carries like a lot of pads and then comes into the bathroom and she's like, "Hey, I got tons of pads for you." But in reality, she's just a big red panda. Also, I just want to say, wow, good job, Pixar. Red panda? Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that was definitely not planned. I know I was talking about the red panda a little bit earlier, like just a second ago, and how both the mom and the grandma, and I guess also the aunts, also can turn into red pandas. This is obviously a reference to periods. Like, I think that there's no doubt about it. I think that period shaming is a very wrong thing to do. It's something that people cannot control. It's not a bad thing. It's seriously just a normal thing that women have to go through. So I'm not period shaming when I say this, but I think the fact that Turning Red is fully around periods and basically the metaphor for periods, aka the red panda, is extremely stupid. Both the Inside Out movies are about a teenage girl, something that I cannot relate to because I have neither vagina or uterus. So basically, I have no clue what these girls go through when they actually are on puberty, but at the same time, I can still directly relate to Riley a lot more than I can to May. May is a completely separate book. I have no clue what is going on when it comes to her. But for Riley, I completely understand this. I don't know if it's because the directors of Inside Out are both male, but at the same time, the way that it's written is that anybody can relate to Riley. Even older people can relate to Riley from their childhood past, as well as how boys can also relate to Riley because of, the teenage angst, the strong emotions. There's a lot with it. It's such a well-made movie, both of these. They really capture the idea of childhood really well when it comes to those ages. I cannot say the same thing when it comes to Turning Red. Turning Red is a movie that I personally do not like for a specific reason. I do not like it when movies have a target audience. I'm going to make a video about this later on, a much bigger and more in-depth video about why I don't like target audiences and why I think they're stupid. But just to kind of give a little sneak peek, Turning Red's target audience is probably mostly women. People that go through puberty the same way that they do. And because of that choice, the problem is that it suddenly just makes it completely unrelatable for a lot of other people. Inside Out can make a teenage girl something relatable to everybody, while May is only a relatable character to people who are teenagers in that time. Another movie that came out last year called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, does this entirely better. It's a movie that takes place in the past, but it can also just kind of take place for everybody who's a woman. I saw this movie in a theater that I was the only guy in. I felt really weird about it, but at the same time, I still really enjoyed it because I can actually appreciate what they're trying to do. Turning Red does not do anything that Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is trying to do. Margaret shows the different types of angst during that time while also kind of keeping it a lot more of a female-led cast. It's extremely relatable even though that I don't have periods because everything about it, just kind of like Inside Out 2, is kind of like directed towards everybody. They have this big target audience in mind, but they also want to make sure that the other target audiences that are not going to be as fond with this movie when they see a trailer will still enjoy it if they actually do end up going to see it. Turning Red, I see no enjoyment in this movie at all, even as a guy. I can't appreciate what they're trying to do because they do not take people like me into mind, which is the reason why a lot of these movies that have target audiences are so hated, because people just don't understand it the way that other people do. Gen Z movies are not going to hit the same to older generations because they don't understand what's going on in that generation. Same thing goes with this target audience for Turning Red. I can assume that probably a lot of people are going to dislike what I have to say about Turning Red.
Okay, good! Do it! I'm not scared of you! Sue me!
Especially because this movie has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I gotta say, tells you everything to say about Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it is not deserving of a 95%. It is a bad representation of puberty. It's completely unrealistic as well. It's trying to shove too many things into the red panda, and basically, don't take the last thing that I said out of context, please. I would just like to say that I'm not telling you what to feel about either of these movies. If you find Turning Red relatable, that's perfectly fine. Good for you. If you don't, too bad, just like me. You can have whatever feelings you have about Turning Red and Inside Out 2. I'm not making a decision for you. I'm just saying that as a story, this is not a well-represented way to actually show puberty in a movie. It's also interesting that both these movies are made by Pixar. For any director that wants to make a movie about puberty, they have to keep in mind that they actually have to be delicate about this situation, because a lot of the people that are going to go see their movie are probably going to be people who are going through puberty. Everybody will go through puberty. People young and old have gone through it or will go through it. And handling the situation poorly, like how Turning Red does it, can completely misinterpret it for people that don't understand what it is and make the idea of puberty a much more sophisticated thing than they can comprehend. Whereas something like Inside Out 2 does it perfectly, because it helps you understand what's happening inside of your brain, why everything is happening, but also gives it in more of like an animated light tone with it. But at the same time, being realistic and giving a lot of accurate representations of what this may come with, especially, you know, the two girls sitting next to me in the audience. That alone exclusively says that this movie is relatable to teenage girls. It's relatable to me, it's relatable to my dad, who also came to go see it with me, and it's probably relatable to a lot of other people that are going to see it right now. So if you haven't seen Inside Out 2, go see it now. But for people that haven't seen Turning Red, don't watch the movie. Don't give it support. It made, I think, a lot less than Luca at the box office when it was re-released. Just don't watch it. It's not a good movie. Rotten Tomatoes is wrong. It's not a good movie that doesn't represent puberty correctly. It's not a good movie to show anybody that does not know what puberty is. And with that said, I think that this video is probably long enough as it is. I'm gonna have a hell of a time editing this. Oh my god. Thank you everybody for watching. I'm Enchanted.